Hello, friends.
Hello.
Again, we're using our old camera for this one. It's just too cold out to risk the new camera.
I'm wearing my worm hat.
And our battery is draining as we speak. It goes really fast out here. So we're just going to do our best to
But that's how much we want to share with you guys and keep this up. We're out here in the cold.
We have something really cool that we want to share today. And it's a word that all of you have heard before. Listening. But we're going to talk about a slant to it that makes it really powerful in our human relationships and really changing how our human relationships are. I think it's safe to say that we live in a culture that is full of distraction. And for most of us, that happens when we're talking to.
What?
Exactly.
Just kidding. It's true. And nowadays when we have iPads and cell phones and everything around us that we can be, right, those watchy things now that people have you ever tried to get someone's attention and then you're talking to them, they're like, yeah, okay, great. And then it's just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Quiet.
Right, but that's kind of it.
It feels that way.
Often.
Yeah, and now I want to just jump in and say, with the listening and what we talk about here, it's great if you can cultivate it through your whole life, but I am suggesting that we narrow it a little bit for right now as we practice and build the skill, because it's a skill, that we stick to family, friends, maybe coworkers you see a lot, to practice first before we just take it to every day, every moment of our life.
It's true. It takes a lot of mental energy. And so to try to do this as a huge change in your life right now, that you're going to have this listening with everybody, it's going to be pretty overwhelming.
You set yourself up for success, right?
Yeah.
And then as you build those skills, it's like push-ups. You're not going to sit down and do 100 push-ups. You can't do 100 push-ups right away if you've never done one. So you start with a small amount and you work up from there.
With listening, okay, so we're talking. There's, I think, two main distractions that are happening when we're trying to listen or communicate with somebody. One is the external world around us.
Like chickens, they come into a lot of our videos.
They haven't been around.
No, it's too cold.
So yeah, they're all huddled up.
But yeah, distractions, there's tons of them. If you have kids, being at work and thinking about multitasking and doing different things, whatever it might be.
People calling on you, those watches,
yes,
technology.
all around us.
So that stuff can pull you out of being able to listen to someone.
External distractions.
And then there's what's going on inside of here, which we'll talk about. Here's the thing, when we communicate with somebody, if someone's talking to us and we're really listening, when she's really listening to me, I can feel it. It opens up my heart in a way so that I want to communicate more deeply. Right away, it starts to deepen relationships. And it feels really good to be listened to because it's so rare these days that someone really honestly listens to us. If you can develop this art of listening, wow. Your children, your partner, whoever it is that you listen to is going to really appreciate it. Although I should caveat that with saying people are sometimes so used to not being listened to that they might think it's a little eerie or strange that you're focused in on them so much.
Why are you listening to me? Why are you looking at me like that? I'm just talking, right? Sometimes I think we just talk because we're trying to get the mental, internal distractions out, and we don't realize, oh, this person's actually seriously giving me their attention.
So how do we listen to somebody?
Well, there's all the basics that probably many of you have heard about. For example, set down any of your technology, set down your books, set down what you're working on. If you really want to have a heart-to-heart, and give the person your full attention. Look them in the eyes. Acknowledge when you've heard them say something. If there's a space, you can even say it back to them. Okay, so tell me if I'm right, but what I think you're saying is, and paraphrase it back to them so they know. And that gives them a chance to say, actually, you're really close, and there's just a slight difference to what you said versus what I'm feeling. And that just allows this real clarification between people.
I think pauses can become really important in conversations, because when we talk about the mental part in a moment here, we're often just waiting for the slightest little break in the conversation to get in what we want to say.
Right.
Lose those pauses.
Okay, so what's crazy is I've seen this happen a lot. I know a few different people who really like to get into philosophical discussions and debates. And you can just tell, I don't know how exactly, but you can just tell that each party is really just this kind of solid tower of impenetrability and my way is the right way. And so the conversation still happens, but you're having a conversation basically with yourself,
yes.
because you're not even really hearing me. You're just waiting, okay, and how can I counter that? And how can I prove this and that? You're not even actually receptive. Listening requires a receptivity.
And it's funny, but you're right. If we're not listening to somebody, you might as well go into a closet and have that conversation with yourself.
Right, go to the mirror and say, hey, how's it going? I fully agree with that statement. And I agree with that one too. Hey, you are awesome to talk to. I should talk to you more often.
When we're communicating with somebody, hopefully we might be hoping to influence their thinking, but hopefully we're also hoping that we can learn and grow from hearing their life experiences, their philosophies, their thoughts.
Well, and it's wonderful because even if you're in a conversation and you don't necessarily, let's say, agree with the other person, you like to leave the toilet seat up. I want it down. Not that that's true of you, but I'm just using that as an example. Even if we may have differing opinions, there's that agreeing to disagree and setting that aside for a moment so we can just talk about it openly. Well, tell me how that makes you feel. Explain to me how you came to do that. You get to know each other, and that's a connection. That's an interconnectedness that I believe we all long for in this world, is to be connected. I think of it a little bit like gardening. You want to get your hands in the soil. You're going to plant those seeds. You're going to weed out the things that don't need to be there. You're going to water. You're going to tend and care for this. And you have to be patient, right? And you have to be persistent. But over time, you nurture this beautiful thing that has these wonderful fruits. You can't just go out to some big weed patch, throw down some seeds and say, okay, go ahead and grow, right?
Yeah, I'm having a really good conversation with one of our supporters and viewers, and we're talking about something that's political that we really, I would say, would superficially disagree on. But because we're listening to each other, we are learning. We're both growing. We're getting different perspectives. I've learned so much from him about the way he sees this part of the world, and I think vice versa.
It's invaluable. I believe that you're here, you're watching this, you want to grow, you want to evolve. And listening, true listening, is a skill that will help all of us along the way, because you begin to learn more about the world. It's a taking in. Again, it's that receptivity and the pause. Pausing isn't just pause long enough so the other person has a few moments to say something so then I can jump back in. It's pause to be open, right? It's that fertile ground of the garden that you have made a space for and you're holding for that person.
Yeah.
To say and to fill in and to work through whatever it might be they need to share or work through. What a gift, both for them and also for you, because for me, it's really hard to slow down. It's hard to slow down enough to set aside my train of thoughts, my list of things for the day, and say, screeching halt, everything piles up. That's what it feels like, so that I can listen to you. But it's so important, because what is more valuable than connecting with others, with the world around us, with ourselves? If we pause, we can do this for ourselves. Listening to yourself is also a skill. So there's the external distractions, but there's also, when we were talking about the internal mind distractions going and going, learning how to pause for yourself to see what actually flows in when there's silence, when you still the mental thoughts. Then you're listening to yourself. And that's a lot of times, I feel, for me, where I get the knowledge or wisdom or whatever you want to call it that helps me make the decision that I've been struggling with, that my thinking brain's been chewing and chewing and chewing and can't get anywhere. When I'm silent and I listen to myself truly is when that tends to flow in.
You were circling back to the internal.
Yes.
And this is an essential mindfulness practice. So this listening, as you're saying, it's not just listening to other people, it's listening to ourselves. When you get out into nature, it's listening to nature. Here's the key. We're having a conversation, and as she's speaking to me, there's kind of two mental distractions that are going on. The one is just our usual mindlessness. So as she's speaking to me, my mind starts to wander off and think about, oh, that email that somebody sent, or what are we going to do with the students today?
Can I be that person who's pretending to talk to them? And then
Yeah, and here's my little thought bubble of, I'm kind of nodding, but I'm saying, oh, maybe I should do that fire challenge with the students tomorrow, because, yeah, that would be good.
what do you think?
Yeah, sounds cool. What? but really, I need to say, what did you say?
Right,
Because I
how
wasn't
many
listening.
of us are guilty of that multiple times a day, right? We know someone's talking to us, but it's just like,
And that's hard, because we're in that habit of being
Yes.
mentally distracted, being kind of mindless. But the more we foster mindfulness, the more we try to tune in, the more we're going to develop that skill. Now, the other thing that happens is more conscious, though it's so habitual that a lot of people can't stop themselves.
ooh,
And this usually comes when we're debating politics, philosophy, religion,
something that is
trying
very
to prove our point.
we are really attached
It
to.
could
We
just be the
identify
toilet seat.
ourselves with.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, right. All right.
So we're having this discussion, and as she's speaking, what I'm doing is I've latched on to something she said, and now I'm just formulating a response in my head. Again, I'm just talking to myself, basically. I'm just here to try to prove my point. And again, our ego gets tied up in this. When we feel strongly about something, we don't feel that release or relief until the other person agrees with us, which you notice usually doesn't happen when we're not listening. All we do is solidify the other person in their position, because I'm just sitting here, I'm hearing her words, getting my argument ready, and then I shoot my argument back. She's doing the same thing.
Right. It's those two towers shooting arrows at each other.
Exactly.
It's not
Ching,
a
ching, ching,
like,
ching, ching.
let's meet out in someplace neutral and have a discussion, right? Try to understand each other.
But when we do that and we try to have that discussion and meet in that neutral place and we listen, wow. But that means that I have to be mindful of what's going on in my head. And while she's saying something, even if I feel a trigger, oh, I really disagree with that, releasing that and going back into listening mode.
Ooh, that's so good. This has been something I've actually personally been working on for a little while. And I gotta tell you, it's really hard to do, but it's super worth it. I was the kind of person, and sometimes I still am, I say I'm a recovering perfectionist. And I also had very low self-esteem for a lot of my life. That led me to feel like when someone wanted to say, hey, here's how I'm feeling, and you've kind of been doing this, and I want to understand that. Immediately, I didn't hear that. It came weird, garbled translation, a garbled translation, into like, you're doing this wrong. How could you be doing this? And even though that person wasn't saying that, that was me telling myself, you're an awful person. You screwed it up again. You're never going to be perfect. Why don't you just give up? All these negative messages, and then what would happen? I would defend myself. Well, but that's only because you blah, 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 blah. And then the other person's like, whoa, oh my gosh. And then they're like, but I was just trying to share something. And do you see how that begins to happen where we can't have that conversation? So I have said to myself, I'm going to try, when someone comes to me, I'm going to try to listen, and I'm going to try not to say anything. Actually, physically not say anything back. And I'm also going to try to watch my thoughts. I can't believe they're saying this because wait, I'm doing that again. What are they actually saying to me? And try to just take it and say, okay, I'm going to sit with this for a moment. It's almost like slow motion conversation. Because I've learned a lot. I've learned that when someone is sharing something with me, it's not necessarily me, it's them. They may need to just share. and it might not actually have anything to do with me. A lot of times when we have conversations, we circle back to one another. We say, that thing that I was saying, I think I don't really feel that way. I just was having issues, and I took it in a place it didn't need to go.
That brings up, I think, one really important final point here about listening. And that is to realize that I can listen to Rebecca I can see her as an isolated unit in time. So here's Rebecca. I can freeze frame her and hear her words. Now, if she says, if you're frustrated with me and you shoot some words at me, let's say, that's not her, but but you do that, I can take that really and get hurt.
The words
Now,
are truth.
Right. And you hear couples especially a lot of times saying, but you said that, and you said that, and
Right.
arguing about the words, instead of seeing her as, instead of an isolated unit in space and time, as an ecological wholeness.
I like flow.
Now I'm listening to her words, but I'm listening to her body language, I'm looking at her expression, I'm even taking in how has her day been unfolding. So maybe some stuff happened in the morning that really was tough, and that is going to precipitate some moods and fluctuations that end up with those words that I could take as hurtful, but now I see, wow, you're just reaching out and you need some...
Right. Essentially, you're doing the stepping into another person's shoes. So before you retaliate or you decide you're going to talk back and just prove your way, ask, how would I feel if I was in this person's situation? And how amazing to step back and have the awareness and consciousness to say, what has this person been going through lately? What have they gone through today? How would I feel if I was in their place, going through what they've gone through? How might I interpret that? Is there a way that I may have interpreted that the same, right? But listening is for all different things. It doesn't just have to be arguments or deep emotions. It can be simply listening to someone who wants to share a story, who wants to tell you about a dream they had. And those are great places to practice because in a way, you don't even have to be emotionally prepared. You can just be receptive, and it's a good strengthening.
When you listen to someone, you give them this wonderful gift of receptivity, of understanding that somebody else cares enough to stop what they're doing and really listen. And you give yourself the gift of developing more mindfulness. Mm-hmm. As we develop more mindfulness, our whole life transforms.
You have icicles all over your face.
Frosting up here. All right, friends. Love to you all. Thank you so much for listening, being part of what we do. Share in the comments your experiences with listening, with being receptive, with not being heard. What does it feel like when someone really listens to you?
Stay warm.